My waters broke late at night. I laboured through the night and managed to sleep through. I say sleep through. Rested in bed for most of it in a nice quiet labour ward with only one other person there. Yeah. You're babbling. I didn't need... Yeah, you're going to start wriggling and fussing and complaining now, aren't you? Yeah, it's what I considered my perfect birth. Really? Joey's over 10-week-old. It's what I considered my perfect birth. My water broke late at night. I laboured through the night. It was a very fast, efficient labour. I didn't need any medication, no intervention, no induction. By the time I got round to needing to push, I was on the nest. I got my great big water birth and everything was amazing. Pushing didn't take very long. I didn't need any guidance. Everything went so smoothly. So easy, so quick. It was literally perfect. Too perfect, in fact. To the point where something had to go wrong, and it did. There I was, enjoying my newborn bliss with my new little baby in my arms in a very, very red, warm water of the birth pool. And one of the nurses said to me, "Do you want the injection that helps your placenta detach from your womb?" I was like, probably a good idea. I don't know what it is. I don't know what happens with it. I'm just happy. I'm in newborn bliss by this point. I was like, yeah, just jab me. It's fine. So she asked me to sit up slightly so she could jab it into the top of my thigh. Had that injection to help my placenta get away. Dropped back into the water and enjoyed my golden hour with my new little baby. I say new, he is 10 weeks old at the point of recording this video, but this is the soonest I've had a chance to record it. I was sat there in my newborn bliss, cuddling my new little baby, wasn't we? We were having lovely snuggle time. He was in such shock. He was just sat there in my arms like, what is going on here? And I was just laughing. He was identical to his father. I had so much energy, so much freaking energy. I was just like, hi baby, how are you? Where'd you come from? Time had disappeared. I was in such a good mood. I was so happy. I was in such a chill mode. Time disappeared. Time flew by to the point where one of the nurses said, right, we really need to actually clamp your cord now. And I said to her, well, hang on, I thought it was delayed cord clamping here. And she said, it is. You've already been in the bath for like 20, nearly 30 minutes, if not more. We really need to cut your cord sooner rather than later. And I was looking at the cord and thinking, there's still a red vein going through this. Where are you going? Oh, back there. But there is still one red vein going through it, or artery, or whatever it is. There was still blood going through the vein. And I pointed this out to her and she said, no, there's not. Like, there's no red vein there. And I'm like, is it just tinted that colour because of previous blood going through it? I thought we had to wait till it was like stark white. No. You've been like 20, 30 minutes now. Oh, someone's being fussy. I might have to put him down. No. You want to go down? You want to lie down in your bed? Apparently not. There might be a little bit of background noise. He's got very good at self-soothing at the moment, so we'll see if he just goes down, because he does usually have a nap straight after his breakfast. The nurse assured me it had been about 20-30 minutes or more, and we really needed to cut the cord soon. So I said, right, fine, I trust your word. And so she asked Jason, does he want to cut the cord? And he did. They let me stay in the bath for another 20-30 minutes while I just enjoyed my bliss with my baby before they said to me, right, you do have to get out now. We need to start cleaning you up. The placenta's still not arrived. You've not had any urge to push it out. We need to get you up and we need to help you out, or need to help you get it out. I was like, right, fine, no problem. So I passed baby over to the midwife, who passed him over to Jason so Jason could have some daddy cuddles. And I just got up and practically leapt out the bath, and the midwife said they were actually quite shocked at how much energy I still had after being in labour and pushing for 9 hours. Well, the pushing was an hour and a half, but regardless. After labour and pushing, I'm surprised I still had so much energy. I was like, what are you talking about? I feel like I could run 5k right now. I've just dropped like 10 kilograms. I am ready to take on the world. When I got out of the bath, and I was just dripping blood everywhere. Which apparently is normal, especially when you have a water birth. Obviously it makes the blood that's coming out of you a little more, diluted, so it does look like there's more than what that actually is. I was just stood there while they were trying to dry me off with just drip, 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 drip. But they assured me it was a normal amount of blood that was coming out of me. I was like, right, okay, fine. So long as this is the normal level that comes out after birth when your uterine lining is coming away, that's all I need to know. They got me to walk to the bed, which, by the way, is so weird of a sensation when you have a great big dangly thing in between your legs and it's just smacking between your thighs. It's a very weird sensation having something hanging down to your knees out of you. They lay me down on the bed and they had a go at trying to help me pull my placenta out. So they pulled on the umbilical cord while supporting my womb so my womb didn't prolapse, and tried to give it a bit of a tug, but it hurt too much and it was not budging. It was not budging at all. And there was 3 of them at the time. There was the main midwife that was helping me, there was a trainee midwife there, and there was also a teaching midwife to help with the trainee. Gave it another 10 minutes, tried again, still nothing, still wasn't budging. Gave it another 10 minutes, still wasn't budging. Gave it another 10 minutes, still wasn't budging, to the point where they even, I think after the 2nd or 3rd attempt, they told the trainee to move away and someone else tried to help, and even they couldn't get it to budge. So they ended up going out, grabbing one of the senior midwives or one of the head nurses or something like that to get her to come in to try and help out. Through every single attempt, I was saying to them, the cord's still pulsing. Is the cord meant to pulse? And they were like, no, the cord doesn't pulse. It doesn't pulse at all. How weird of a sensation. And I'm like, yeah, weird of a sensation that I'm still feeling blood pulsing in the cord, like full on pulsing. Okay. And you genuinely can feel it. After a couple more attempts, I could still feel it pulsing. It was still not budging. They went out and got the head nurse or the lead midwife or something like that to get her to come in and help. She tried to give it a good tug, still wouldn't budge. She gave it another good tug and a very large clump of uterine lining came out, which again is apparently normal post-birth, and a chunk of the placenta came out, I believe, but the rest of it was still stuck tight and it was actually causing me a bit of pain when she was tugging on it. And then I mentioned to her that pulsing sensation is still there. Yeah, it is. And her face went white. She said, I have a feeling your placenta's still attached, which an hour after birth, it really shouldn't be. Or it's either 45 minutes or an hour after birth at this point. Like that long after birth, it should not still be attached. It should have come loose, especially after you having the injection. We may have to take you upstairs and get a doctor to try and manually pull it out. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. They got me onto a bed, they rolled me upstairs, and I ended up having the doctor have a look to see what was going on. It was a manual inspection. There was no medication, no injections or anything like that. Everything was going fine. She just had to manually look, spread things out a bit, so to speak, which were still numb from giving birth, to see what was going on. Unfortunately, my placenta was half attached. So half of it had come away, the other half had decided it did not want to leave. On top of that, my cervix had closed. It was a vault door and nothing was coming out. It was like, nope, the baby's out, that is it, we are closed for business. So unfortunately, even if my placenta wanted to fall off and come out, it couldn't. My cervix was locked tight. They had to try and manually open my cervix and get the placenta out. They gave it a few goes while I was conscious and it wasn't happening. It was quite uncomfortable having them wriggle around up there, but it was tolerable. It was like just as tolerable as the contractions were prior to giving birth. We continued. She tried again and again, and unfortunately it was not budging. So she said, can we give you some gas and air to try and help you relax? And I'm sat there thinking, gas and air is not going to help me relax. It's not. It's like, it's going to make you feel drunk. I was like, that's the problem. Feeling drunk does not make me relax. Feeling drunk tenses me up. But they insisted to give it a try, so I did. I gave the gas and air a try, and I did not like it. And I am so freaking glad I was not on that nonsense while I was giving birth, because my God, it felt awful. Everyone has a different sensation with gas and air. Some people enjoy that drunk feeling, some people enjoy the more lucidity. I hate it. I like to be in control of my body, so that feeling of yeah, I do. We like to be in control of body. So that feeling of drunkenness did not do me any favours. I honestly felt like the room was spinning. I was lay there with it in my mouth going, whoa. Apparently I wasn't moving, but I felt like I was. I genuinely felt like I was swaying and I wasn't. That was just how my brain felt. I hated every second of it. It was awful. And apparently it made me tense up like crazy. Absolutely crazy. It made the whole situation worse. He's so tired. He usually has a morning nap around now and he's not having any of it right now. That's it, you fight that book. While this is all going on and they're rummaging around up in there, Jason is on the left to me looking after baby with the midwives and making sure he's okay and that he's looked after. And he looked over to me and asked me if I'm okay. He was streaming with tears. Like, I have never seen him so emotional. Yeah. Am I not allowed to talk now? Like I was saying, I have never seen him so emotional. I have never seen him cry so much, and they were all happy tears, but they were also worried tears because he was genuinely worried about me. Please excuse me a second, I'm going to have to do some walking to try and calm him down. And now the little man's had second breakfast, hopefully he'll settle down now. So like I was saying, Jason was very emotional, both with happy tears and worry for me. He said to me while the doctor was checking to see if she could help me, "What do you think of this name?" And I said, "Yep." He said, "Well, which spelling do you want? Do you want this spelling or that spelling? Because the name we chose for him has 2 different spellings." Since he chose the name, he let me choose the spelling. I say let me. It was always a mutual agreement. We were never going to pick a name that both of us didn't agree on. And bless him, he was right by me, holding my hand, asking me if okay, checking on me, then jumping back to baby and checking on baby, make sure baby was okay. He was such a supportive father. He was so good. Unfortunately, the doctor said to me that because my cervix had clamped shut, there was no way to remove this manually without causing me severe pain. So she said, after multiple attempts, we need to get you into theatre and surgically remove this. We're not going to chop into you. We're not going to slice you open. It will be a manual removal, but the amount of pain it's going to cause you, you really want to have a spine blocker to numb the pain from the waist down, because it is going to hurt. So that is unfortunately what had to happen. I then had lots of people coming in and out because they had to prepare for surgery, because it was still classed as a surgery. I had to sign paperwork to say that I understood what was going on. Through this all, I was still in a newborn high. I did not care. And going into surgery was the last thing I wanted. But I was in such euphoria, I did not give a damn. I was just sat there going, yep, that's fine, so long as this is what we need to do, if this is what happened, this is what we need to do to save my life and stop things from getting worse and stop me from getting sliced open, then this is what we do, then let's go for it, it's fine. I was not fussed. The newborn high was rushing through me like crazy. So after signing lots of paperwork and doctors coming in and out getting ready for surgery, the trainee midwife actually sat with me while we were waiting and we had a little chat, which was so nice and very comforting on my part to have someone there just to chat to. They had to rush Jason out of there because they said, "We're really sorry, you can't come into theatre. Baby does have to come with us because we need to keep them close to mum. We also need to still check their vitals and check that they're okay and check that everything's good and check their weight and everything." Because they hadn't done these checks at this point. They were still too worried about me. They hadn't done all baby's checks. So baby had to come with us, or baby had to come with me into the surgery. And poor Jason was left outside waiting to find out what had happened to his fiance and his son. I went into the surgery room, and there was a huge team of people. A lot of them were trainees, which they did say to me, "Are you okay with trainees being around?" I was like, well, they're gonna have to learn one way or another. And personal opinion is physical or one-on-one actual doing teaches you a lot more than not doing or doing it theory. I said, yes, I don't have a problem with trainees, which I didn't. Because again, the more experience they get, the more knowledge they get, the better doctors or better nurses or better midwives they're going to become later on. All the trainees were very excited because apparently the surgery that I had to have doesn't happen very often. It is quite literally once in a blue moon that this kind of things happens. So the trainees were very excited because most trainees don't get to experience that kind of surgery during their traineeship. They were all very, very happy. They were all very excited. And I was just sat there going, as long as I'm alive. As long as I'm alive at the end of it, so I can actually look after my little baby, that's all I give a damn about. They took me into surgery. I sat on the thing and I had one doctor slash nurse, I'm not too sure which she was, who was basically my, I want to say comforter, I don't know the correct term, but she was basically talking me through it, trying to keep me calm, trying to keep me at ease, trying to keep me comfortable. Then there was the anaesthetist or the anesthesiologist, I'm not too sure which he was, but basically the person putting a needle in my spine in order to actually block me or make me numb from the waist down. This was the part I was most terrified about, and this was the reason I didn't want a C-section. I was literally terrified of this needle going into my spine. But again, because of the newborn high, I wasn't too bad with it. I was just like, yeah, fine, it has to be done. I have no choice in the matter. It's this or I get sliced open, and I'd rather avoid get sliced open. So let's go for it. Let's go for the needle in the spine, which is still terrifying. And it was still absolutely... I remember on the outside, I looked really calm, but my foot was twitching like crazy. My foot was twitching like mad because I couldn't, even though I was calm on the outside, the nerves and the anxiety of that needle going in my spine was still flooding me subconsciously. And the person that was trying to keep me calm and comfort me was like, please calm down, please calm down. It's like, come on, we need to stop this twitching. You're about to have a needle in your spine. You need to be as still as possible. And I physically could not stay still. If I stopped my foot from twitching, my other foot started twitching. If I stopped that foot, my hand started twitching. If I stopped that, my other hand started twitching. I could not get myself to completely stop still. The anesthetic person who puts needle in spine, he started poking and prodding and said, does that feel like the middle? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, what do you mean you don't know? I was like, I don't know. It's like, it's in the middle, but it's slightly to the right. So he pulled it out and put it in again. How about this? It's like, same thing. It's in the middle, but now it's slightly to the left. It's not smack bang in the middle. And like, okay, how about this? I was like, I'm not sure. Like, I can't physically feel where that is. It's like I can feel a stinging, but the sting keeps moving. It's like I'm not sure. And at this point, I'm really, really, really shaking because the reality is hitting that a needle is getting put into my lumbar spine, and I am getting very scared. No matter how much people are calming me or trying to tell me to relax, it's like this is the thing I was most scared of. This is the thing that I was most terrified of. Fear and the nerves were starting to set in. The newborn high was starting to drain. The adrenaline was starting to drop, and I was just getting the shakes out of fear. He tried again, and unfortunately he clipped one of my nerves and sent a huge electric shockwave from my head all the way through my left side down to my toe. It literally felt like lightning or electricity bolting through that side of my body, and my whole body just jerked up. Physically couldn't stop it. Physically couldn't stop the movement. It just boom. My whole body just reacted. I was like, I'm so sorry. And the person comforting me saying, you have to stay still. You have got a needle going into your spine. The wrong move can cause major damage. That did not help the fear and nerves. I was like, I know this. I am very well aware of this. But that doesn't stop the fact that I have a needle going into my spine and my body is terrified. And if he hits a nerve, I cannot stop my body's knee-jerk reaction to electricity running through it, or the nervous system being completely triggered, setting off all my muscles. I physically cannot stop that. Couple more attempts, and he finally got it in the right position. I was just sat there thinking, I just hope this hasn't caused some form of damage. But he finally got it in. He administered the anaesthetic, and it started taking effect almost immediately. They said, right, we need to get you down now. And I was like, yep, fine. And I still felt normal. I felt fine. I had a tingling sensation in my toes, but other than that, I felt normal. I went to actually get my legs onto the bed, and my legs were very heavy. I had very little control over them, so I had 2 or 3 of the nurses to help me get my legs onto the bed and into the stirrups and get me in the right position. My legs were up in the air in the stirrups, and so everything was accessible, let's say. Then they had to strap my arms sideways, so I was in a complete and utter cross position. I had no access to my limbs or body. I had needles and IVs and all sorts in one hand. I had blood pressure monitors and blood monitors and all sorts on the other hand. They said, we're really sorry, we just have to make it so you do not move. So I was literally strapped, Jesus style, to this table with legs in the air, spread apart for all to see. I was very vulnerable. I was in a very vulnerable position at this point. But again, the newborn high was still slightly there, so I was just sat there going, this is nice. At least I can't feel any pain. If nothing else, I can't feel the pain. Just la 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 la. They eventually started the procedure, or told me that they were starting the procedure, and I couldn't feel a thing. Down there was completely numb. It was non-existent. Like, they could have literally been slicing and dicing me open and I wouldn't have had a clue. Wouldn't have had the foggiest what was going on down there. While they were doing their thing, one of the trainee, I believe it was Jade, the trainee midwife, she actually brought over baby and put him right next, like he was in a swaddle with a little hat on, and she put him right next to my face just for a bit of comfort and a bit of ease, and allowed me to snuggle up to him just so I had a bit more relaxing going through me and just being like, oh, there's my baby, he's safe, he's good, everything is fine, which I knew he was anyway. I wasn't particularly worried. I knew he was in good hands and he was being cared for. That's all I cared about. But it was really nice that they had him right next to me for comfort and soothing on my part, just to make me know that everything's okay. I heard the doctor explaining to the trainee what was going on and what was happening down there and what she was doing and how they had to look for certain things and how they had to pry the placenta away and stuff like this. They finished the procedure and the doctor came up to my head end and actually showed me how deep into me she had to put her hand, because that is literally what happened. It was a manual evacuation. So she had to put her hand up into my womb and pull the placenta out manually. And apparently she was all the way down past her wrist. So she said, this is why we had to give you the anaesthetic, because if I had done that to you up in the labour room, you would have been in agony without any medication or anything like that. I was like, yep, get that. Perfectly fine. Everything good, everything fine. She's like, yep, you do have a 2nd degree tear, but that was caused due to me having to go in there manually, not because of the birth. I stitched it up for you. You'll never know. It's the muscle that's teared, not the actual skin itself. So I've just put some stitches in there just to try and heal it, and it should actually heal very naturally. It's dissolvable stitches, so you don't have to come and get them removed. All is good. You just need to wait for the anaesthetic to wear off and recover. Just keep in mind that you are going to be a bit loose down there while things close back up, so to speak. So I said, yep, fine, that's no problem whatsoever. The doctor went off and did her thing with whatever she had to do, and people started to clean me up and tidy me up. I was completely awake and conscious, so I was watching them touch my leg and clean my leg and rub all the blood off and everything else, and I couldn't feel a thing. And I cannot explain or describe how weird of a sensation it is when you can see someone touching your leg. You can see someone cleaning you with cloth that should have a certain texture. You can see that it's wet, so it should either be warm or cold to the touch, and you feel nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's literally like watching someone clean a wax leg. It is quite literally like watching someone clean someone else's leg. You feel nothing. Absolutely nothing. By this point, my hands had been released and my arms had been released. I still had an IV horrible thing in that was stopping my hand from moving, but I had movement of my arms. So I reached up and started touching my leg, and I couldn't feel it. I could feel it in my hands, but my leg could not feel me touching it. And that was a really weird sensation. Really freaking weird. I now have a better understanding of how paraplegics feel when they say that they can feel their toes, because I could feel my toes. My toes were desperate to move. They were literally aching. They wanted to move so bad. But then to actually touch my legs and not feel a thing was the weirdest sensation. It was so unusual and so mind-boggling. And to experience that every day, it's just, I can't even fathom it. Can't even fathom it. It was the weirdest sensation. They got me down, they got my legs in the stirrups, and it was very weird to not be able to move my legs. I was trying so hard and it was not happening. It was not, my legs were not shifting, and it was weird. I wasn't scared, I wasn't afraid, because I knew the sensation would come back, but it was an experience. It was a really surreal experience. Well, after they finished cleaning me up and tidying things and giving me my dignity back for 5 minutes, they then shifted and slid me onto a movable bed and moved me into the recovery ward, where Jason was finally allowed back in. It took him a minute, but he was finally allowed back in. We went into the recovery ward and they told me that it was going to take up to 6 hours for the anaesthetic to wear off, but they needed to keep me in the recovery ward for about 20 to 30 minutes just to monitor me, make sure my blood pressure's okay, make sure that sensation is starting to return back into me, etc, etc. So that is exactly what happened. We stayed, we chilled, we read books, we chatted, we just let time be time. At this point, the only people that knew a Little Minion's arrival was actually Jason's parents, because Jason had had to ask them to nip to our home to look after the birds and grab our colostrum that we'd harvested in order to bring it ready for him. They were the only ones at this point that knew that he had been born and knew that I had been in surgery. So they were just as worried about me as Jason was, and Jason was very worried. So when he came into the room and knew I was fine and baby was fine, he was so much more relieved, and bless him, he ended up falling asleep on the bed because he was just so worn out and so shattered. And it was the sweetest moment. It really was. He hadn't slept, he'd been so worried, and the flood of emotions from both of us was unreal. I was quite happy, I was wide awake, I was cheery, I was getting second wind, I still had adrenaline running through me from the whole experience. And slowly but surely, my legs did start to get their sensations back. I started to be able to feel my glutes and could start sort of pulling my glutes. Then my left leg, my left thigh started to twinge anytime I tried to physically pick it up or move the muscle. Then my right leg started going. Next thing you know, I could squeeze my legs together just ever so slightly. Slowly and surely, the sensation did start to return. At this point, it was only 10:30 in the morning. And considering I'd given birth at 9, all of that surgery, all of that drama, all of that all happened within an hour and a half. It was that quick. It was that quick. Had my water broke at 11:30 at night. I gave birth at 9 o'clock in the morning. And then I was done with surgery and all the drama by 10:30. So this all happened in less than 12 hours. It was very quick, very efficient, very fast. And then after that, it was just recovery. Once they confirmed that I was definitely fine, my blood pressure was fine, everything else was fine, they sent me back to the labour ward. They instantly put me on antibiotics because obviously with someone's hand going up into there was risk of infection. So just to make sure there was no risk of infection, they put me on antibiotics to clear out any bacteria that may have snuck in. And I also was on a couple of other types of medication, and I can't remember what it was, but it was basically recovery medication, which meant I had to have this horrible IV in my hand, which meant I physically could not move my hand. Like, my hand was as stiff as a plank. It couldn't grab, it couldn't move because of this damn thing in it, which I hated. I hated that so much. When you have a newborn that you want to hold and pick up and grab and lift in and out of their cot and you don't have use of one of your hands, it is very annoying. Very, very annoying. But bless him, while I was recovering and I didn't have access to my legs because I physically couldn't stand up, Jason was the most amazing parent. He did all of baby's nappy changes. He brought baby over to me for feeds. He did all the clothing and all the changes. And anytime I needed food or needed water, he was up getting it for me. He was so supportive, and I cannot thank him more for the amount of love and care and attention he showed us. He was such the doting father, and I loved every single second of it. Finally, after 6 hours, the sensation did return to my legs, but I had to wait a further 2 hours before someone actually came over to help me stand up, or to make sure that I could stand up. And thankfully I could. I had full use of my legs again, which was wonderful. And then they tried to get me dressed into pajamas. And my God, I had to practically cry and say, no, get them off me. It wasn't because they were uncomfortable. It wasn't because of anything else. It was just so hot in that labour ward. I was melting, like genuinely sweating just in a hospital gown. So when they actually put the pajamas that we brought, even though they were really thin pajamas, the heat doubled, the sweat doubled. I was like, no, get these off me right freaking now. They stripped me back down, they just got me a hospital gown, and unfortunately they got me a small hospital gown, so that was fun. It was very difficult to keep on because it wasn't wide enough for the chest, so I sort of had my arms like this forward most of the time. That was nice. I basically just used the hospital gown as a blanket. Everyone else in the ward, every other mother, every other person was all in pyjamas or something comfy and dressing gowns. And I'm just sat there going, I don't know how you ladies are doing it. I am sweating. I'm sorry, am I talking too loud now? You want to go down to the chest? Okay, there you go. I don't know how they did it. It was so warm in there. I was sweating, just wearing an extremely paper thin hospital gown. I was sweating. So I ended up staying in the hospital gown. But because I had surgery, I also had to stay in overnight. So I had the midwives overnight coming in and checking on me, seeing how I was. And anytime I needed to get up or stand up, they were suddenly panicking, like, no, Ashley, sorry. No, Ashley, don't stand up. You've just had a C-section. You can't do, like, you need to be careful. I was like, I've not just had a C-section. Yes, you have. You had a C-section. It's like, no, I didn't. And I would move the hospital gown out the way to show them I have no C-section scar. I have not had a C-section. I had a manual placenta removal. And they were like, oh, okay, that's not as bad then. But we thought you had a C-section because usually people who stay in overnight is because they've had to have a C-section or there's been other sorts of major slicey dicey complications to birth. And I was like, no, I just had a manual placenta removal. They just have to keep me in for 24 hours for monitoring. And he was like, okay, that makes more sense. So that was fun. And for some reason, every single midwife or every single nurse and even a couple of the doctors that came in were convinced I'd had a C-section. I was like, no, I've not had a C-section. I've just had a placenta removal. That was also my first ever experience overnight in hospital. I have never stayed overnight in hospital before this. I got tea because obviously they needed to feed me through the day. So they gave me a meal and they gave me the thing to say, what would you like? I was like, oh, they've got vegan burger. That's good. It's good to know that I've actually got something I can eat. And they were aware of my allergies and they did their best to try and make sure that they didn't have any dairy or any beef in my food. So I ordered vegan, I ordered the vegan burger, I ordered some chips and I ordered some broccoli. And that was pretty much the the only thing on the entire menu that I could actually eat. I'm not even joking. Everything else either contained milk, it contained beef, or it contained some sort of sauce that contained dairy that I couldn't eat. It was so difficult to try and order off the hospital menu because there was no dietary requirement for dairy. There was gluten, there was vegetarian, there was halal, there was every other type of restriction you can think of, but not dairy. Typical. The nurses and the doctors and the people doing the food and everything else really struggled to actually find food that I could eat. But like I said, they did have vegan burger as an option, so I got a vegan burger, some broccoli, and it was either rice or chips, I can't remember which. Food eventually came, and it was the most bland, tasteless, overcooked, boiled nonsense I have ever eaten in my life. It was foul. It was one of the worst things I had ever eaten. No fault to the NHS. They have thousands of patients they need to feed, and quality is very much quantity over quality. They can't make everyone's food really, really delicious. It's just, it is what it is. But my God, this tasted like heck. It was absolutely foul. I hated every bite. I ended up only eating a handful of it, and then bless him, Jason ended up going down to the M&S corner shop in order to get me some mango and a sandwich because I just physically couldn't eat it. It was horrible. It was foul. And then the person came around with the breakfast menu and she said, is there anything on this you can actually eat? And we went through the breakfast menu and no, there wasn't. There was literally nothing on the breakfast menu I could eat. So Jason arranged to actually bring me in breakfast. So I was like, that's fine. You can bring me in breakfast, all will be good. I'm just going to rely on you for food because there is no way in hell I'm eating hospital food again because that was foul. Absolutely foul. It was horrible. Throughout the night, I was checked up on regularly. I could not sleep. If it wasn't a baby crying, and not necessarily him, like he didn't cry much. He didn't cry much at all, and when he did cry, it was very short, very quick, very brief, because I could hear his cries thanks to learning baby language. I knew the difference between the calls, between the ne, the he, the the meh. I could tell the difference between all the shouts, so I knew exactly what he wanted, so he didn't cry for very long when he did cry, because I saw to his need immediately. But the other babies in the room, my God, they cried. and screamed and cried. So trying to get sleep was very difficult. There was only like 20 to 30 minute patches where there was no baby crying. On top of that, because we were all being monitored, there was always someone coming in and out monitoring one of us, doing checks like bloods and blood pressure. Not necessarily bloods, but blood pressure, heart rate, and other checks like that, just to make sure that we were all okay. We all had to get monitored. There was always someone coming in and out of the damn room. There was always someone's baby being checked on, or they were coming in to check on baby, or they were coming in to give meds. And it's like, just let us sleep. Just let us sleep. And there was one woman, I felt so bad for her. She was in the very corner bay, which was a tiny bay. It was actually the bay that I was on when I was going through labour. And it was small. Like, there was very little space to move around. And she was in agony. She had had a C-section and something had gone wrong. And she was in pain. Like, she was in absolute agony. She was crying. She was screaming at one point from the agony. She was just begging for someone to help her, and there was no one in because it was the middle of the night. And bless her, that continued all the way up till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon the next day. She was in such pain. She was in such a bad way. I felt so sorry for her. She couldn't do anything. She literally couldn't do anything. But anyway, after all that palaver and staying in for my checks and my monitoring and everything else, and just getting a handful of naps when Jason eventually came back, because dads do have the option to stay overnight, but I told Jason to go home, get some rest, because I'll need him at full strength in the morning, and also to give me a chance to see what it's like having to look after little man here on my own. So Jason went home for the night and came back the following morning with breakfast, and also to do the pets, because the pets still need feeding at night and in the morning. Another reason why I sent him home. He stayed with us all day. He looked after little man for most of the day while I got a nap and allowed myself to recover as best as I could, with people coming in and out every 5 seconds doing checks and medication and everything else, and then baby checks and everything else in between. Eventually we finally got sent home at 10:30 at night. We got told from something like 5 o'clock that they were ready to send us home, but they needed to wait for medication to come through the pharmacy, and I had one more dose of antibiotics that I needed to take before I got sent home. So that's exactly what happened. We waited till 7 o'clock for the 7 o'clock antibiotics. The 7 o'clock came and went, and then we were just still sat there waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting to go home, because we weren't allowed home without medication. And then finally the medication came. I got given 6 weeks worth of blood thinners, because apparently I was at high risk of blood clot. Newsflash, or spoiler, I only took those blood thinners for 2 weeks because they made me feel weird. In fact, I don't even think I took them for 2 weeks. I think it was about a week and a half I took them for, if that, because they made me feel weird. They made my blood feel weird. I could feel my blood like water running through my heart. It was really weird sensation. They were making me feel lightheaded and woozy. I was losing my balance, all because of these blood thinners. I wasn't allergic to them or anything, but because they made my blood so thin, it was getting very hard to move around. It was having a very negative effect. So I think I stopped them after like a week and a half. I still have 5 weeks worth or something like that upstairs that I need to take back to the doctor. They also sent me home with some lactulose, even though they checked my allergens 17 or 18 times throughout the time I was there. They still sent me home with lactulose, which is a derivative of lactose. And even lactulose's website and recommendations say do not use if you have high sensitivity to lactose. I don't know. You'd think a doctor would know that, but no. And they also sent me home with some iron tablets because of my anemia due to my inflammatory bowel disease. So I had to wait for a lot of medication, but finally the medication came and we were finally sent home at 10:30 at night with our new little boy, and finally got to come home as a family. God, that was a crazy 2 days. My water broke at 11:30. I was in the hospital from 12:30. I laboured through the night. I had him at 9 o'clock in the morning, or 8:55 to be exact. I then got rushed straight into theatre. I was out of theatre by 10:30. It took until about 5 o'clock for my legs to recover from theatre and actually be able to walk again. I spent my first night in hospital with him, looking after him, while Jason went home to look after the pets and get a good night's sleep. We didn't get much sleep because of check-ins and medication and everything else. And then we finally got to come home and have our first real night as a family at 10:30 p.m. on the second night. Wednesday 11:30 p.m. all the way through to Friday 10:30 p.m. Almost 48 hours to finally come home with our little man. And he has been the first 8 weeks. My God, for all you new mothers or mothers that are expecting, get ready for the first 8 weeks. The first 8 weeks are brutal. They are hell. They are difficult beyond belief, especially the growth spurts. My God, the growth spurts are something else. You get no sleep during growth spurts, you are literally a walking zombie. But once they get past that 8 weeks, or even when they reach like 9-10 weeks, it's worth every second. It really is. They calm down so much, they get into a routine, settle down, they nap easier. Everything's just so much better when they reach like 8 to 10 weeks. Or once they pass that 8-week marker, or once they pass that 4th trimester. Things get so much easier, so much more enjoyable, and you really get to truly enjoy them. Like I said, this little man is now 10 weeks old. He's actually 10.5 weeks as of today. Started smiling. He's trying to talk to us. I really, really wish I hadn't decided to try and keep him off social media, or keep him offline, or keep his face offline at least. I've got such cute videos of him. Such cute videos of him trying to talk, trying to say hello. And he does, he goes, oh, hello. Smiling, he's just started to giggle. He did his first like mini giggle the other day, making all sorts of noises. He's trying so hard to communicate, and it's just it's so lovely. It is so lovely. He was worth every second of the labor, of the pushing, of the after surgery, or the manual removal of the placenta, and even the total of 48 hours in hospital, or almost 48 hours in hospital. He was worth every second. And like I said, the first 8 weeks are the worst. The first 8 weeks are the hardest. After those 8 weeks, it gets so much easier. And please, if you need help, if you need support, reach out to someone. Don't just rely on your partner, because I was lucky. Jason has only just gone back to work full time at 10 weeks, and I would have not been able to survive those first few weeks without him. I ended up having to call on support from my mum, from his mum, from friends, from my sisters. If you need help, reach out to someone. Reach out to a loved one. Reach out to a friend you can trust. Reach out to your partner's family if you can trust them. Reach out to your family if you can trust them. Don't suffer through it alone. Don't try and do everything yourself, because you will burn out and it will be hell. Get any help you can. It really does take a village. It really, really does take a village. And I am so grateful for the village I'm surrounded by.